The automatic doors of St. Augustine Medical Center burst open at 2:13 a.m., and the smell of rain and gunpowder rode in on the stretcher. Blood dripped onto the polished ER floor like a ticking clock. The young man on the gurney was barely conscious, his chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths. Outside, thunder rolled over the city of Jacksonville, Florida, but it wasn't the storm that made the night dangerous. It was the black SUVs idling across the street, headlights off, engines humming like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. Before we step further into this night, take a second. If you believe in kindness, in redemption, in second chances for broken people, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that courage can wear the most unexpected face. The paramedics shouted vitals as they rushed the patient inside. His name was Marcus Hale, 24 years old, 2 gunshot wounds to the abdomen. The police report whispered of gang affiliations, a failed deal, a betrayal. But in the ER, labels didn't matter. There were only heartbeats and the race against time. Claire Donovan stood at the trauma bay sink, finishing her 3rd cup of bitter coffee. To most of the staff, she was simply the quiet night nurse who worked doubles without complaint. She wore her blonde hair in a tight bun, kept her voice calm, and carried herself with the steady rhythm of someone who had seen too much chaos to be rattled by it. But beneath her navy scrubs, beneath the hospital badge clipped neatly to her chest, lived a history no one in that building fully knew. Years earlier, Claire had been part of a specialized maritime tactical unit within the United States Coast Guard. Not the kind that made headlines. The kind that intercepted drug runners in black water at 3 a.m., boarded hostile vessels in hurricane winds, and trained for threats most civilians never imagined. She had left after an operation went wrong off the Gulf Coast, after losing a teammate she considered a brother. The sea had taken something from her, and she had traded her rifle for a stethoscope, believing healing might quiet the ghosts. When Marcus was wheeled in, Claire's eyes scanned him the way they once scanned hostile decks. Entry wounds. Powder burns. The tremor in his fingers. Fear. Not just pain. Fear. Dr. Ethan Caldwell barked orders. Nurses moved in coordinated urgency. Blood transfusions began. Monitors beeped in frantic rhythm. Marcus faded in and out, whispering something that only Claire caught when she leaned closer to adjust his oxygen mask. "They're coming," he breathed, lips barely moving. Claire's gaze shifted, just slightly, toward the ER entrance. Across the street, the SUV's headlights flicked on at the same time. The first sign was the security guard stumbling backward through the sliding doors, eyes wide, radio clattering to the floor. 5 men in dark hoodies and tactical vests stormed in behind him. Their faces were hard, determined. One carried a duffel bag that sagged with the unmistakable weight of weapons. Panic spread faster than fire. A mother grabbed her child from the waiting room chairs. A nurse screamed. Someone hit the silent alarm, but everyone knew patrol cars would take precious minutes. The gang leader, a tall man with a scar cutting across his jaw, raised a handgun and fired once into the ceiling. The crack silenced the room. They weren't there to rob the place. They were there to finish Marcus. Claire felt the old switch flip inside her chest. The one she had buried beneath years of night shifts and gentle reassurances. Her pulse slowed instead of quickening. Her breathing evened out. Dr. Caldwell froze near the trauma bay. "We can't let them in here," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Marcus lay exposed on the table, life hanging by sutures and transfusions. He was someone's son. Maybe someone's brother. Maybe he had made terrible choices. But in this room, he was a patient. Claire stepped toward the trauma bay doors and locked them with a firm click. She turned to the 2 younger nurses, Hannah and Miguel, whose faces had drained of color. "Stay with him," she said evenly. "Do not stop the transfusion. No matter what you hear." The gang members began kicking open treatment rooms, searching. One of them grabbed a doctor by the collar, demanding information. Another overturned a cart, metal instruments clattering across tile. Claire moved quickly but calmly down a side corridor toward the supply room. Inside, she accessed a keypad panel most staff barely noticed. Years ago, after a violent incident in another hospital, administration had installed reinforced lockdown protocols. Most employees never trained beyond the basics. Claire had. She activated a secondary security barrier that sealed the trauma wing with steel shutters hidden in the walls. The heavy panels slid down with a mechanical growl, cutting off direct access from the main ER. The sound drew attention. 2 gang members spotted her and charged down the corridor. For a split second, Claire was back on a pitching deck in the Atlantic, boots slipping on saltwater, adrenaline sharp in her veins. She sidestepped the first man's grab, using his momentum to slam him into the wall. The second swung wildly, but Claire ducked and drove her elbow into his ribs with precise force, targeting a nerve cluster she remembered from hand-to-hand combat drills. They hadn't expected resistance. Certainly not from a nurse. One of them recovered quickly and reached for the pistol tucked into his waistband. Claire reacted before conscious thought caught up. She seized his wrist, twisted, and the gun clattered across the floor. She kicked it away, sending it skidding under a cart. The commotion echoed. The leader with the scar turned the corner, eyes locking onto her. Recognition flickered, not of who she was, but of what she represented. An obstacle. He fired. The bullet struck the metal cabinet inches from Claire's shoulder. She dove behind a crash cart, heart steady despite the ringing in her ears. Around her, fluorescent lights hummed, incongruously calm. She wasn't fighting for pride. She wasn't fighting for revenge. She was fighting for time. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance now. The gang leader advanced, fury twisting his features. "Move," he snarled, gesturing toward the trauma wing. Claire stood slowly, hands raised just enough to appear compliant. She let her posture soften, let him think she was cornered. Then she spoke, her voice low and unwavering, carrying the weight of oceans and storms. She told him the wing was sealed, that by the time he breached it, law enforcement would flood the building. She told him the young man inside would either live or die by the skill of the surgeons, not by his bullet. She told him that crossing another line tonight would ensure he never saw daylight again. Something shifted in his eyes. Not mercy. Calculation. Sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the rain-streaked windows. He cursed, signaling his men. They retreated as quickly as they had come, shoving past overturned chairs and terrified patients. Within seconds, they were gone, tires screeching into the wet Florida night. Silence fell, broken only by sobs and the distant echo of approaching patrol cars. Claire didn't wait for applause or shock. She returned to the trauma bay. The steel shutters retracted slowly as officers stormed in to secure the building. Inside, Marcus was still alive. Dr. Caldwell looked at Claire differently now, as if seeing the steel beneath the softness for the first time. "You saved him," he said quietly. Claire glanced at Marcus, pale and fragile under the surgical lights. "No," she replied, her voice gentle again. "We all did." Hours later, as dawn painted the sky in muted pinks over Jacksonville, Marcus was wheeled into surgery for a final procedure. His vitals had stabilized. He had a chance. Claire stepped outside for the first time since the chaos began. Rain had stopped. The world looked deceptively peaceful. She thought about the path that had led her here, from storm-tossed seas to sterile hallways. She had once believed leaving special ops meant leaving courage behind. But courage, she realized, wasn't about the uniform. It was about standing between violence and the vulnerable, wherever you were planted. Weeks later, Marcus would wake fully, shackled to a hospital bed under police guard. He would learn that a nurse had stood between him and death. He would ask for her by name. And when Claire visited, he would break down, not from pain, but from the unbearable weight of being spared. That night became a turning point. For Marcus, it was the beginning of cooperation with authorities, of stepping away from the life that had nearly killed him. For Claire, it was confirmation that she had never stopped being who she was. She had simply changed battlefields. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that heroes don't always wear armor and that even the lost deserve a chance to change, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive. And before this story ends, I have one special request. Comment the word hope below if you believe no one is beyond redemption. Because sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, when evil thinks it has the upper hand, it meets something stronger. It meets a healer who refuses to surrender. And in that collision between darkness and courage, lives are rewritten.